Hey, it's IdkWhatsRc, and this is the very first real episode about saving Runescape, my new series. So in this video I'll talk about the leveling or progression system of Runescape that I personally think is lacking and is one of the main issues of the game right now. If you haven't watched my introduction video about this new series, then I highly recommend you to click the annotation on the screen or the link in the description. Before actually telling you what my suggestion is, I think it's very important to truly understand what is the current situation of RuneScape. There are two main things that companies need to do in order for the game to stay alive. And the first one is to attract new players. It's very important, otherwise the game won't last long. And it's probably one of the main issues with the game right now. There are simply no new players, and Jagex knows about it, obviously. That's why they are trying so hard with the Recruit a Friend program, for example. But at the same time, it's also very important to keep the top player interested to the game so they continue playing it. So far, Jagex have done a great job at keeping the top player interested to the game by keeping their progression feeling alive. But there is a limit with the current system to what they can do about it. And it's probably one of the reasons why RuneScape is in such bad position right now. In order to stay alive for a game like RuneScape, it's very important to keep a good balance between those two. So between newbies and top players. You cannot simply go all in for the new players, it won't work. You cannot also go all in for top players like Jagex did for many years. Okay, so first of all, the new player problem. So right now in the game there are more and more max players, and this is a real problem. This is a really big problem because the average player in RuneScape is also increasing. Right now there is a big distance with the current average player and newbies, and it's like a frontier. Newbie cannot expect to become an average player only after a lot of training, and for most people it's out of reach, so they cannot even expect to become an average player, and this is a problem. Personally, when I'm starting a new game, I'm expecting to be able to become an average player without starting with any knowledge of the game, and right now in RuneScape it's impossible. And it's also the reason why I'm not playing, for example, WoW. If I'm starting right now, there is no chance I could be in the top ladder, so why playing the game when I cannot even become an average player? Don't forget that I'm only talking about the new player problem, and obviously from a top player point of view, the situation is totally different. For top player, it seems easy to become an average player and things like that, but I will talk about that later in the video. But first, let's ask yourself, why is there such a big difference between a new player and an average player? Well, obviously there are two main reasons. First of all, the game is getting old. There are many players that have been playing the game for many years, and obviously they will be higher level than the newbies. There is also another big problem. There are not many new players playing RuneScape, and obviously if there is no new players, the average player will be higher. Obviously, Jagex did a few things to correct the situation. So what they did is faster and easier training. With that, a newbie can become an average player. It's possible now, even with no knowledge of the game. But this has also very bad effects. You cannot expect to solve a situation like this with an easy fix like that. So what actually happened is a couple things. First of all, yes, it's easier for the newbie, but it's also easier to train for the average player. So what happened is that the average player, instead of only having skill cape, has now a max cape. So for example, back in the days, having level 120 combat was fine. You could find a team to go to the God War dungeon. But now, if you want a team, you need to be max combat with overloads and with thermal, for example. This is the new standard because of all these easy training and faster training methods. Another example is that having a skill cape back in the days is pretty much the same thing than having 200 million experience in a skill right now. So yeah, it didn't really solve the problem because the noob is still very far from the new higher average player, but it's even worse because the average player is mad because all their achievements are nothing anymore. They aren't worth the same than when the methods were harder. Another big reason why there is such a big gap between the newbie and the average player is the ability to make extra effort. So what I mean by that is not necessarily playing more, but playing more intensively. For example, doing rune crafting with alchemy, with fire making, doing wood cutting with fletching, things like that. So right now, everybody trains at the same experience per hour, and I do think that newbies, if they work really hard and intensively, they should expect to become an average player faster. But anyway, I will talk about that in another video. So yeah, back in the days, if a newbie were working really hard, it could become a top player. Obviously, the top player back in the days was really lower than what it is right now because it was harder to train and the game was younger. But it was possible. Right now, the gap between the newbie and the top player is huge. And most people, even if they try very hard, will never make it with no knowledge of the game, starting from total newbie. So yeah, that's a big problem. Another thing to consider is that for newbies, it's very hard to feel achievement or being successful, because as soon as they do something, for example, get their first level 99, which is a big achievement, the top player or the average player won't really trust him. He will simply tell him that he is a newbie and he worked harder back in the days to get it, and that his level 99 is way too easy and things like that. So for a newbie, it's very hard to feel successful and to actually achieve something meaningful. Okay, so now we'll talk about the second big problem about the top players. So it's the lack of progression in Runescape. So in this video, we'll simply assume that progression and achievement is the same thing to make it easier. Obviously, yes, there is still progression in the game, even for top players. You can get 200 million experience, you can get a trim completionish cape, but it's not really the same thing than getting level, unlocking things, and actually feeling stronger, progressing through the game. In my opinion, there is a reason why we chose to play Runescape and not another game. So there are tons of games, but we chose to play Runescape. And to be honest, there is kinda only one strength with Runescape, and it's the progression feeling when you're playing it. Runescape is a grinding game, and you really need to keep this grinding experience, the grinding feeling, this feeling of progression if you want it to stay alive. So we need to be able to keep training, to keep working hard, to get achievements and feeling stronger and things like that. Otherwise, you cannot expect the game to last long. That's pretty much the only thing that makes Runescape stand out of the bunch, the grinding and progression feeling. In my opinion, games should focus on only one thing. For example, Runescape, it will be progression. A game like Halo 4 would be to have fun and things like that. Just try to imagine Runescape without experience and achievements. You would simply cut trees for the whole sake of cutting trees. It will be a terrible game and probably nobody would be playing it. On the other hand, for example Halo 4, I'm sure that many people, even without experience, will be still playing this game. So yeah, in short, if you remove this progression feeling, the game is dead, and currently there is a big lack of progression for top players. Okay, so now let's take a look at one of the most popular examples to solve the problem. And the thing is to increase the max level to 120 for all the different skills. So not only dungeoning, and obviously to add content all the way to level 120. So yeah, this update will be amazing for top players. So many more things to unlock, and the feeling of progression is back. So it's really good for that. However, it will be terrible for new players, obviously. Right now there is a big gap between a newbie and a top player, and imagine with this update. So the difference between a newbie and the top player would be even greater than that. And there is no chance you could even imagine to become a top player. Right now, the way it's currently made, with level 99, it's already very hard to make cash, for example, because all the low level stuff are worthless. They try very hard, they get items, but they worth nothing. Imagine if the only things that were good is at level 120. So the noob, instead of being noob until level 99, it would have to stay noob all the way to level 120, which is terrible. Another thing to keep in mind is that most updates were actually like this. The best example, in my opinion, is dungeoneering. So dungeoneering was a skill that was made especially for top players. It's really obvious. A top player have a big advantage over a new player for dungeoneering, even if both players are level 1. There is a huge gap, and dungeoneering was a very long skill. It was made to keep the top player busy for a long time. Like I said at the beginning of this video, it's very important to keep a good balance between top players and new players. Personally, I think dungeoneering was still a good update, but I know that many people have quit RuneScape because dungeoneering was simply hard. They rage quit the game, especially new players. Another extreme possibility would be to do a total account reset of RuneScape. So all the accounts are all wiped out, they all come back to level 1, all the quests are undone, all the items are lost. So obviously this would be amazing for new players because everybody will be the same, all equal, they start all from scratch, and they have the opportunity to become a top player, which wasn't the case before. One of the best examples of reset is Diablo 2, which is nearly as old as RuneScape and is quite still active for a game that old that doesn't have updates. So it's still the exact same game except that it has reset. Personally, if I had to play a new MMO, I would probably play Diablo 2, especially because of that reset. Because even though I quit it a long time ago, I could still come back to the game and become a top player. Obviously, it will be very bad for all players that work really hard to get those achievements, and everything they have done would be wasted. Personally, I wouldn't really mind a total reset because I'm playing RuneScape for progression, not achievement. So there is a little difference between the two. So for example, for me, achievements are kind of meaningless. They are simply a proof, a visible proof of progression. So I wouldn't mind a total reset and would still be playing the game. But obviously for many other players it will be terrible, and probably many players would quit if Jagex did something like that. Top players would become simply average players, and many people will quit because of that. Another thing to consider is that it will free many people from the game. So for example, many people are playing RuneScape because they are high level in that game and they don't want to switch game and become a noob in another one. So yeah, with the reset, nothing will really hold them from keeping playing RuneScape. It's also very important to understand that a full reset, even if they reset the updates, will still not bring RuneScape like it used to be. So yeah, the community is not the same than what it used to be. Right now there are hardcore players that play way more than what the average player used to play. People are also less ignorant, so every methods have been perfected. There is efficiency nearly everywhere, so it's not at all the same community than before, even if it's the same game. Like I said at the beginning, it's very important to keep a good balance between new player and old player, and I don't think a total account reset is the way to go. Okay, so this is a little summary of everything I've said so far in the video. So first of all, there is an increased amount of top players in the game right now. So it's easier to become maxed, easier to get skill cape. So there is a big gap between a newbie and a top player, even though the methods are faster. Okay, so now let's do a little recap of everything I mentioned so far in this episode. So first of all, there is an increased amount of top players in the game, and this is a big problem because there is a big gap between a newbie and a top player, more than ever before. Even though the methods are faster, they are also faster for the average player, so the distance is very high and many newbies don't expect to become a top player. It's simply out of their reach. Because of that, there are less and less new players starting to play RuneScape, and this is a big problem. Another part of the problem is about top players. So there is a big lack of progression feeling for top players. Yes, there is the 200 million achievement, there is also the Trim Completion Escape achievement, but it's not really progression. It's not really the same thing than unlocking things, becoming stronger, and actually progressing through the game. So yeah, my solution to this big problem is the prestige system. The The basics are really quite simple. So once you are level 99 in a particular skill, you cannot get more experience in that skill for Highscore. You are stuck at level 99. And the way to continue this progression is by resetting the skill. So by resetting it, you will go back to level 1, but it will also increase your prestige level by 1 for that particular skill. There are already some people that have done that in the past, so max players who wanted to feel progression once again, so they made a second account and got max on this second account too. But the main problem with that is that most people don't want to make a second account because it's a waste of experience and a waste of time that could be invested in their main account. However, with this system, you won't actually have to sacrifice your efficiency and your main account in order to get back this feeling of progression. This is a quick example of how the new Highscore would look after the Prestige system update. So obviously the goal of Runescape for most players will still be the same. It will be to get the highest experience possible, so the highest Prestige. So it's still the same thing. Nobody is really advantage because everybody needs to reset in order to get more experience. So it's fair and equal for everybody. I also think that the current way the Highscore look on the official Runescape website is kind of bad and needs to be improved, but anyway, that's for another video. First of all, for top players, this update would be simply great because it will be a never-ending feeling of progression. So you will always have something new to unlock, you will always progress through the game and feel stronger every time, which isn't the case right now for top players. Another great thing about this update is that all the achievements that they work really hard for are not actually lost. Yes, it's not exactly the same thing, but a top player before this update and after this update is still a top player. This update will also be very good for new players because right now, in order to do the same things than the average player, it's kind of hard for a newbie. It takes a lot of time and most of them simply quit before achieving it. But now, with this update, it's very easy for a newbie to do the same things than the average player, even though the new average player has a prestige level. It's not really a big deal for a new player. Obviously, an update like this would have huge consequences on the economy. I don't really want to talk about it in this video, but for sure it's a very important thing to understand. But basically, all the different tiers item, so for example, low level gear, mid gear, will have an equal demand because there will be players from all different levels all the time, instead of a big bunch of high level players and a little bunch of noob with nobody between them. An update like this will be really good for new players because right now all they can get is low level stuff that aren't worth a lot, so it's very hard for low level players to make money. Okay, so now we'll talk about a few technical parts about this big update, and the first and probably the most important one is the experience for each prestige. Personally, this is what I would recommend, but obviously we can discuss that. Simply post feedback in a comment section. So obviously if you are less than 13 million experience, so you're not level 99 yet, then you will have no prestige. If you have 13 million experience, you will get 1 prestige. 50 million experience 2, 100 it's 3, 150 it's 4, and 200 million experience, the current max experience you can have, would be plus 5 prestige. So it's a big advantage over someone who has only 1 prestige. It's very important to understand that you cannot simply take your total experience and divide it by 13 million experience to get your prestige. It won't be fair because getting 13 million experience after level 99 in a skill, you can use better methods than from the 1 to level 99. So yeah, this is only one of the many different possibilities you can come up with a system. And here's another one. The main difference now is that at 200 million experience, which is the max amount of experience you can get right now in a skill, you will be at max prestige. So 10 prestige. Obviously it can be another number. Simply post a comment below about what you think should be the max prestige. But basically the difference is that you won't have to race to get back your rank for a skill you have actually maxed out in the real Runescape. There is also a technical problem with skills like Slayer and Summoning, because it's way easier to train those skills if you have max combat. so it's kind of unfair for someone who does it the real way, like a noob would do, so from level 2 to 200 combat. So what I would recommend is that to reset Slayer will need to reset attack, defense, strength, constitution, range and mage all at the same time to reset the skill, and same thing for summoning, because otherwise the most efficient way to get experience in that skill will be to get mass combat, do Slayer, reset Slayer, do Slayer again, reset Slayer, and it won't really be fair for people doing it the real way. The exact same thing could be mentioned for a melee stat. Another tricky part is about quests. So personally what I recommend is that you only need to do them once, and once they are done forever, no matter how many times you reset a certain skill. Another thing I want to mention about quests is that after resetting a skill, you will still be level 99 in that skill for quests. So I don't want people to be afraid of resetting their skills because they want to do the new quest that just came out and don't want to wait all the way to get back the level they have already achieved. So for quests, only for quests, if you have prestige, you will be level 99 and be able to do the quest as usual. For things like the completionist cape, I also think that you only need to do it once, and once you have done it, you keep the cape forever, even if you reset the skills. I also think that after prestiging, it will still act as a level 99. So now let's talk about the different types of reset. So the first one is a forced reset all to level 1. So yeah, with an update like this, every player will be the same except their prestige level, and everybody will start equal. So this means there will be a race for all the different high level stuff, and you could also reset all the quests fairly easily, and it will be fair for everyone. However, there is a little problem with that, is that some people don't actually want to be reset. They work really hard to get high level. They don't really care about experience. They do it for PvP, for boss hunting, for fun, to get money. I don't really care. But anyway, some people don't want to be reset. Doing it once is already very hard. They don't want to do it once again. Another problem is that it will mess up the economy very badly, because the top player will be able to get things that most people can get and sell them very high. For example, a player managed to get the first Abyssal Whip, he can sell it for pretty much whatever he wants, because nobody else is able to get the item. So it will really mess up the economy, but in a way it's a good thing. Please keep in mind that this force reset will only apply for the first day of the Prestige system update. After that, if you get level 99, you are not forced to reset. You can simply continue to train the skill, kill boss if you want at level 99, but you will simply not get any experience. Another possibility will be a force reset to relative level. So what I mean by that is that, for example, you have 75 million experience in the skill, which is halfway between the second prestige and the third prestige. Well, when the update will occur, you will be prestige 2 at level 92, which is exactly halfway from level 1 to 99. The great thing about an update like this is that right away there will be a range of all the different player levels, instead of a big boom of level 1 where there will be tons of competition and the hardcore player will have a huge advantage over a player that doesn't play a lot. So obviously, once again, there is a little problem with people who don't want to be reset, and another problem is that there won't be this competition. Some people would like this competition at the beginning, being the first to kill an abyssal demon, for example, but some people won't like this. And finally, there is the not forced reset. So the great thing is that nobody will be forced to prestige. So if getting level 99 was really hard for you, you can keep your level 99 and continue boss hunting or picking or whatever, but obviously you won't be able to get experience only after prestiging. The only problem is that a reset like that won't attract as many new players as it could attract, because if too many people decide to not reset, so doesn't care about experience, then the new player will still be away from the average player. Okay, so that's pretty much it about my prestige system. Now I want to talk about a few twists or variation. So obviously the first one is about the type of reset. So I've mentioned 3 types. If you have another type, then simply post a comment below. Also post a comment below about the prestige for the current experience. So for example, it's 20 million experience for 1 prestige. Right now, when the update will occur, is it 50 million? What is the max prestige? Things like that. Another possibility is that every time you reset a skill, it gets harder to train. Obviously, this will have an impact on the prestige for current experience. Another tricky question is about banks. So should it be reset when the update occurs? So obviously some people are playing the game to get the richer they can, and an update like that would simply ruin the game, but at the same time it will be more fair for everybody. So yeah, simply post a comment below about what you think. I will talk about that more in detail in my economy video. Another very interesting variation would be special reset. So you reset your character, but you have more restriction and condition. So it could make the whole experience different. Once again, I will talk about that later in another video. And finally, should we be able to undo a reset? For example, on level 99, I reset my skill, I get to level 50, and at that point, I don't really want to continue being level 50, I want to go back to level 99 like I used to be. So should we allow that, going back to level 99? And if we allow that, and you allow people to go back to level 99, should we allow them that when they will reset the skill once again, they go back to level 50 like they were before, or they go back to level 1 and all the progression are lost? So yeah, that's pretty much it about this video. I hope you liked it, and don't forget to post a comment below about your feedback. It's very important that I know what people are thinking about this idea to improve it and hopefully make RuneScape a better game. And yeah, don't forget that this is only a part of my project. So the prestige system is one of the 9 things I want to improve about the game, and you really need to consider this project as a whole and not only separate things. So the prestige system itself won't really save RuneScape. You really need to have all the different elements as together to make a big difference.